Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum, Harnessing the Power of HR Technology. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Neelam Agarwal, former Director of Human Resources, TripAdvisor. We're super excited to have Neelam with us for a keynote presentation titled, Last Not Least, How to Succeed at Succession Planning. Welcome, Neelam. Over to you.
Hi, thanks, Nick. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. I heard the session's going really well, and that there's been some really, really good speakers here. So I'd like to add to hopefully a very important and meaningful and a topic that is very near and dear to me. So looking forward to talking to you all today, this afternoon. I'm not sure if we're all in the same time zone, but it's East Coast time in DC, which is where I'm at, and really just kind of talking through some great initiatives that we have and things that we can do as an HR community to really not make this last anymore in terms of organization priorities. So with that, I'm actually going to kind of just kick us off. I'm going to be doing a couple questions. I really would like to hope that you guys can engage with me a little bit and just keep you awake. I don't know if some of us had lunch and don't want to make you fall asleep here, but I'm going to kick us off with a question. And pretty much if you want to just type in the chat, that would be great. Let me know what you think if this question is true or false. 65% of organizations invest in leadership development of their high potential talent. Yeah, if you even want to just do a T or an F, I would love to hear from you. Okay. Well, I'll give it a minute here. Yay, thank you, team. Wow, I'm seeing some, it's like, gosh, we should go play definitely a lot of falses. Well, actually, I could probably see where you're coming from when it relates to answering false. But actually, if you think about this, and I actually did a little bit of research, Harvard Business Review, Forbes. I love data. I love Gartner. I'm sure you all are familiar with that. I'm a data nerd some days, right? But it's good. It's good stuff. The answer is true. And here's what the research says. It's true because we do invest in leadership development as organizations for our high potential talent. But we're most likely, based on the research, not investing in the right leadership development, right? So 25% of the organizations that were studied from the statistic, and I want you to think about this for a minute, said that that's actually meaningful. We have an ROI on this leadership development. 25% of that 65%. So what does that tell us as HR professionals, as an organization leader? It tells us that we probably need to and should be looking at the type of leadership development and be intentional about what we're actually setting up. What is it that we are investing in, and is it the right fit for our talent and our leaders as we move towards accomplishing what we need to accomplish for succession planning in our business with leadership talent? So I thought that was very interesting. Kind of continue on the statistics and just information, case studies. I love case studies. I've done case studies most of my career, and I think they're so powerful. But I'm not sure if any of you are aware of, probably almost 10 years ago, 11 years ago, Microsoft CEO says Steve Ballmer says, you know what? Hey, guess what, team? It's it. I'm stepping down. It's August 2013. And imagine this. What does Microsoft do? The third most profitable, fourth most valuable company, they're about to lose their CEO. No successor, no plan in place. The tech giant is they're not ready. So what do they do? What do they do? And so many organizations do this, but what did they do? They started to interview a series of external candidates. We went externally. We interview all these great leaders, hoping that they're going to prevail and do well and last in our organization. But so many organizations till this day go external. And so at least Microsoft started that way. But after interviewing leaders from Ford and Qualcomm, like 20 plus leaders, I think they had on their slate, Steve's like, hey, it's February. I'm ready to leave. I'm done. So Microsoft is left with a quick decision, an emergency plan. And instead of having an emergency plan, they made a decision, and they actually went internally. They hired Satya Nadella. Outstanding pick. Think about what he did for Microsoft over the last, during his tenure there. He was a 21-year veteran with the company. Wasn't aware that he was a successor for Steve. Whereas not a lot of readiness, right, that Microsoft had invested in him to get him to this role. But they took a chance, and, he helped make Microsoft's stock increase. He opened the culture up, become more collaborative, and he did a great job. But they got lucky, right? Microsoft got lucky. And they made a good decision by going internally. But imagine the lack of planning, what it could have led to, and what it can lead to. Many large companies, they don't pay attention to the leadership pipeline. We all know this. We've been a part of organizations where we're not ready. As an HR professional, as an HR leader, a couple of companies and organizations that I worked at, we've gone externally with our C-levels and some the other critical roles. It's very common. It's a very common practice. And so just kind of keeping this case study in mind, it can be detrimental even to the bottom line. And I think obviously that speaks to a lot of our leaders and key stakeholders in the organization when we put a dollar value. And in this Harvard Business Review case study was actually, it can be so detrimental that we're talking, based on their research, the S&P CEO C-suite transitions, it's about, in terms of the aggregate that they did, almost $1 trillion. Just think about that for a minute. $1 trillion. I mean, that's insanity. So how can we think about this a little bit more, a little bit differently as HR professionals? What can we do? Well, we're going to get to that. I do want to kind of talk about, I love questions and I love continuing to ask these. So bear with me, but I want to make sure I'm actually engaging you. And again, so here's another question. According to Gartner, yes, I love Gartner, what percentage of surveyed HR leaders, that's us, right? Some of us, believe that they are well equipped with senior leaders to lead their organizations in the future? Take a guess. Now, when I read this, I thought it was interesting. I probably agree with this, but I think there's more work to do. But again, if you could just kind of throw something in the chat. What do you think it might be? Yeah, thank you, team, for whoever, some of the members that are responding. Appreciate it. It's actually 50%, according to Gardner, and which isn't a bad number, right? It's not bad. It's not bad, but we go back to the same sort of piece that I started with of, yes, we believe we're equipped with senior leaders, but are they ready? Are they ready? Do they have the leadership development? Do they have the individual development plans? Have we invested in them? Have we been intentional as an organization to get them ready to be the next CEO, to be the next CFO, to be that next director of finance or a business product line? And going again to question 3, the next question I have is, they're not ready. They're not ready. We're not putting the preparation in. We're saying we have these leaders and we believe this, but then when we get to the candidate slate or when we get to an open position and there's like hesitation. Oh my God, stop. Wait, is this it? Is this right? Do we have the right list? I think we have to go outside. I'm not sure about this. There's hesitation, right? And how can we get through that? How can we as HR professionals and leaders say, you know what, they are ready? And how can we be transparent and create a leadership development culture where we do know who our high potential talent is, where we know that, you know what, these individuals are ready. They have the institutional knowledge. They can keep delivering business continuity. They have the relationships externally and internally, and they're capable of growth. So all good statistics, not bad statistics, but it's the piece that comes after in terms of the plan, right? And the actions that we're not taking. So what are some of the risks? What are some of these risks if we don't take these steps, right? Oftentimes we know that successors are not developed. They're not developed. We go outside. We don't have a plan. We might think that we might look at our metrics and say, okay, of the open critical positions that we've identified as critical, we have 4. Yeah, I think he or she's good. They've done X, Y, and Z. But what are we doing to continue to make sure they're doing X, Y, and Z and they're ready for the next set or the next role because we've identified them as a successor? It's great that we've identified them, but what's the plan? What's the next step? What are the future experiences? What are the future growth opportunities that we can provide them with? We focus on current leadership role profiles. Oh my gosh, this is a really interesting one. I mean, we talk about change management all the time, right? I mean, we've heard it. I've heard it so much in my career. I've done it so much in my career. And I'm sure each of you have done change management. And I feel like we're doing more and more of it recently. And so what does that mean? That means we have evolving businesses. We have change. We have new things coming. And that means our profiles for our executives and our leadership roles are also changing. And so we can't just focus on the current role. We have to really plan for what's the future going to look like. If we're identifying a successor that's ready in 2 years, well, we need to make sure that we're thinking about the profile also in terms of what the business readiness looks like. Another risk, lack of transparency on succession plan disengages top talent. So this is interesting, right? We talk about the importance, and we know as HR professionals, succession planning is, I remember when I first started my first job at Raytheon, I was an HR business partner, and we talked about succession planning. And to this day, we're continuing to talk about succession planning. And, I'm still seeing how this is maybe not evolved as much as I would have hoped it would in my 20-ish years of working in the HR profession. But in that amount of time, I would say the transparency piece is still missing. We have a new generation of individuals that have come into work. We know that generation appreciates transparency. We know transparency increases engagement. We know all of these things, and yet we still are not transparent about, or there's a risk if we're not transparent about succession planning and who's our top talent. And hey, you know what? Mr. X over there, we really value you and believe that you're our top talent. We think that you have, a strong career trajectory here at this company. We've identified you as, part of our high potential talent. And we believe that this is kind of what things look like here for you. We want to work with you on your individual development plan. We don't have those conversations that often. And those are some of our risks, right? And imagine when we do have those conversations and when companies have had those conversations, what those benefits have been and what they can be. And I think I've already shared this. Another risk, one of the last risks that I'll mention, is the habit of going external. We go external so much. It's written in so many different succession planning research papers that I've read. I've experienced it firsthand. Yet we managed to hire such good talent and we go external. And think about that message that it sends to the organization as well. It's like, if you want to stay and you want to go up, you got to kind of get out, because we're succession plans. We keep seeing all these new external hires. So risks for sure, and things that we can definitely impact and influence as HR professionals. And so let's think about now, how do we turn this potential that we know we have of helping our organizations, being change agents, influencing, not making this the last or least priority in our organization. So, identifying the most important competencies for leadership development. I started the presentation by talking about the leadership development question, right? In terms of, yes, there's a lot of organizations out there that do invest in leadership development. But the question is, are we actually being deliberate and intentional about what does leadership development mean to us and our organization? Have we identified the right competencies? I mean, you think about Amazon, right? Amazon has, I think it's 15 or 16, if memory serves me well, leadership competencies that every people manager, they hold accountable for. And it works for them. In some cases anyway, from the research and from what I've heard from some Amazon partners that I work with. It's a system. It's a system that they put in place. They're intentional. They're deliberate. And when we put those types of competencies for holding our leadership accountable and for developing the leaders that fit in the culture and the business model that we have in our organization, it actually works, right? But we've put thought and we've been collaborative with our teams, and we've really been useful on saying, okay, you know what? We have this program, but this program works, even though 65% have said it worked. We have a program, but the 25% is no longer going to be 65%. It's going to be higher. The 25% isn't going to be 25%. It's going to be higher now because we've been intentional about what that program for our leaders is. We've created a culture of leadership development. We continue to do this. We continue to make sure our leaders are getting growth. We are being transparent about this. Our employees know what leadership development looks like in our organization. We know lots of more things about leadership development. It's ingrained in our culture. And that's what it means to have a culture of leadership development where we're being intentional about the competencies and the priorities we set forward. Rigorously assessing the potential of aspiring managers. So we're going down deep into our bench. What's our career aspiration conversations? What individuals are interested in being managers? Obviously, we want to invest in leadership and managers that want to be and aspire to be managers. Now, everyone, I agree, cannot be a manager. Everyone may not be one, but how do we encourage that? And how can we assess, who our talent is today and know our talent and what our gaps may be in certain areas if we don't have this talent? Creating growth maps for individuals, career plans, aligning strengths with the various leadership competencies. this is career pathing at its best, right? And also going back to really the first ways of turning potential into success, of continuing to make sure that we have a structure in place that helps facilitate success. So just kind of keeping some of these areas in mind, these other two, like being really authentic, right? And investing in our talent in terms of leadership development. It's so important. It's authentic commitment. It's hey, my leaders are actually being proactive about this. They're actually talking to me as an HR professional. They want the data. They're hungry for it. They want to learn more about, and they're adding and contributing and sharing about this leadership development. And then in terms of, I know I skipped around a little bit, but growth, right? Again, we can't just have growth with promotions. That's one way, and that's an important way. And we want to make sure we're continuing to do that. And I know we do that in companies. But how do we do growth and take some risk, right? You know what? I think this person, let's just kind of see how they do. Give them a little bit of a stretch opportunity. Give them visibility. Offer the job rotation and coaching. I mean, we have that culture of coaching that we want to keep doing. So I know you're all familiar with all of these things. And I know this is all very real to you. And it's things that we've been talking about for so many years. But the great news is it really does work when we are intentional, when we do partner with our HR teams and our business partners, and we talk about this and we're transparent and we put action to this. It does work. And I'm just going to highlight some companies where it has worked. But again, I can't reinforce enough the importance of having regular talent reviews with the right audience, right? We don't want to just have talent reviews. How many times have people done a talent review? Maybe it was like the first time, or it was in 1 year. And you know what? It was either with not the right audience, or you know what? We did this talent review. It was great. And we didn't do anything after that. I know I've done that before. I mean, I felt so good that we actually had the first conversation, but then after that, it was like crickets, right? It was just like, uh-oh, nothing's happening now. We'll wait again till 1 more year. What? And there's so much that can happen in a year. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have great, robust succession planning processes and programs. And that's awesome. I think that's great. And I hope that, that continues. But there's also a lot out there, according to research, where we don't have that yet. Again, reinforcing collaboration between HR and leadership, and metrics. How can we use metrics? This is one of the pieces that we'll probably, I know, is on sort of the briefing on this presentation. Metrics. How do we get started, or how do we keep going? And looking at, metrics like how many critical roles do we have? What are our critical roles? How many successors do we have? Are they ready now? Are they hungry? Do they have an aspiration? How long does it take to fill roles in general? How long might it take to fill this role? Engagement numbers, obviously that, speaks to retention and things like that. So there's lots of metrics, right? The metrics are important. They're important to continue a review with leaders. They're important to tell stories around, right? Storytelling. What do these metrics tell us about our succession planning, and how can we better prepare? So I know I spent a lot of time on this slide, but I really feel strongly about all of these things. So I hope this resonates with some of you, if not all of you. And so just kind of moving forward here and to the next slide is, I've tried to think of the best way to summarize this, and continuing to talk about what, you as professionals in an HR community can really do. And it starts with, it starts with us. There's a lot of frustration sometimes where I've talked to my, HR counterparts on this topic, where it's like, oh gosh, we can't get this off the ground, or we talked about it a little bit, but it got pushed, and now we're doing it in fourth quarter. And you know what? Now we're doing it in, two quarters from now. And our time got cut short. We had to shorten the agenda, or maybe some people and their maturity level in the organization is not even where they want it to be. So there's a lot of frustration that I hear about with this topic. And it's all about, first of all, I think it starts with us as HR professionals. And when we have a good, healthy organization, it could be something that our leaders and our business executives also have a goal of, but thinking about how can you and what can I do as an HR professional to turn, this into something that can be successful in my organization, and really just thinking about where are we in my organization, identifying the current state, like, are we we're not even where I want to be, but it's okay to just accept where you are in your organization. And then what can you do knowing that that's your starting point, right? And I kind of divided this up into 3 P's: being proactive, being persuasive, and being persistent. And I've talked about a lot of things already in terms of what we can do, but here are some more things. Being proactive, right? What's 1 or 2 things you could do in your organization today to help make sure succession planning is a priority and it's not the last on the list? One thing, right, to get the conversation started. It could be a various of things that are listed on the slide. I'm not going to read them all. It could be something else, but how can you be proactive? And I know you're probably thinking, you know what, it's not me, or you might be thinking, I shouldn't say you are thinking, it's not me, it's my leaders or my culture, and they don't want to do this, and this is not an important initiative. And I understand that and appreciate it, and that's hard. But I do think there's opportunity, and I do believe that when we try to be proactive and we can start small, that there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity, whether it's going into your next leadership meeting and saying, hey, I was thinking about this topic, or I just came off of this conference or this session, and I really wanted to kind of just get your thoughts on this and start there, right? Data is a great way to persuade that proactiveness, right? So I feel like the next part of this is, how do you persuade your proactiveness? And maybe using data, maybe using a case study, maybe a current situation that's happening in the organization. Things that, you can leverage to influence your customers and your business leaders.
Okay, Neelam, we actually have to wrap it up because we have coming up. But thank you so much for such an incredible keynote. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled AI at Work, Harnessing New AI Tech to Scale and Transform Your Workforce, featuring GP. Please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.